What's going on, Spurs fans? My name is Tom Petrini, and this is the Big Fundamental Podcast, the Ken's 5 podcast on the San Antonio Spurs, the official TV station of the San Antonio Spurs. With me today, I've got my good friend, Jeff Garcia. Jeff, how you doing today?
Doing good. By the way, happy Bruce Bowen, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan Day. Okay,
absolutely.
Throw it out there.
How could you forget that day? I've had that.
How
on
can you
my
forget?
calendar.
It's 12/20/21 today. Come on, everybody's Bowen.
The most fun holiday this week. But seriously though, Jeff, very excited to have.
Wait, no love for LMA, I guess, huh? LMA doesn't get that, no. Well, Bro was the first 12. He was the first 12. Yeah,
I thought it was a really classy move when the Spurs went and got LaMarcus Aldridge that summer because they had to go get him, right?
Yeah.
Bowen was like, "Yeah, you can wear my 12 if you want." That was good on you, Bruce. We've got some present-day Spurs basketball to talk about, and
yes, we do.
I'll be honest, these past 3 games here have not been what I had penciled in result-wise on the schedule.
Nope.
They face a coronavirus-addled Hornets team and give up 41 points to Jordan Hayward. Because that's what he looked like. Are we sure that it wasn't Michael Jordan that just suited up in a?
I was at the game, and I know I would rank that as the second biggest opponent performance I saw at the AT&T. Number 1 was Kyrie Irving years ago.
I was about to say it has to be Kyrie.
Yeah, Kyrie Irving was number 1, but Gordon Hayward's a close second so far.
15 of 19 from the floor in 3 quarters of work. So. A surprising, disappointing loss for the Spurs. Mm-hmm. Then they go on the road to Utah and beat a Jazz team that is spectacular, has won 8 in a row before that.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming off of that huge, impressive win, go into another disappointing, inexplicable loss to a Kings team that, in the first place, isn't very good. And last night was without 6 guys. So basically,
flashbacks of last season. Remember the Houston game when Houston came in with -6 people and they still won?
I thought coming into this season, hand up, I was a little wrong.
Yeah.
I thought that there was going to be less of this in terms of playing down to the competition, losing games that shouldn't be lost. I thought there would be less of this. I was incorrect. There has been basically the same amount of it. But why? Yeah. We'll get to why we think it's happening in a second here. But if you ask the fans, if you ask the coaches and players, they will tell you pretty much the same thing that has been the line on a lot of these losses during the season.
Right.
Maybe not a lot. There have been, anytime there's been a bad game, this has been what Popovich has said afterwards, basically. They were the more aggressive team. They executed better for more of the 48 minutes. Mm-hmm. In these last 2 losses, though, he's been very critical of his team. He's using words like soft and pathetic.
Good for him, finally.
And so let's go into let's give it to Greg Popovich and some of the Spurs here.
Sure.
Give you their thoughts on these 2 losses against the Hornets and the Kings.
Just started the game too casually. The start of the third quarter is what we needed to be, the way we played in the third quarter. But we weren't, for whatever reason, mentally prepared enough to start the game. I don't know if they took it for granted. I don't know if they're still excited about the Utah win. Who knows? But that was a disappointing loss where we wanted to build on the Utah win, but obviously we're too satisfied with it. They got back on track in the third, but things happen. Like Buddy got hot. But beyond all that, I thought they were more aggressive than we were for most of the night. Doug did a good job with them. They moved the basketball. They beat us. They got 27 points on second chance points. That is a pretty good indication how soft you played. So in that sense, it was disappointing. You win, you lose, but you don't want to lose by giving up 27 points on the boards or starting the game that soft. So that's not something that makes me feel very pleased.
We came off a win against a great team. They came off of a lose by 20 points. They're depleted. They don't got one of their star players, so they just came out playing harder than us. It's just that simple. We just got to find consistency of just effort. I feel like we got the talent. I think we have showed that we can play with top-tier teams, and, you know, I mean, it's the NBA, so everyone can play in this dang league, so we got to put respect on everyone and know that every single game is going to be a dogfight, and we got to play with that.
I think it all was on the defensive end for us, you know. The offense will come, but you can't let teams just they dragged us up and down the court all night, so that wasn't good. There's no excuse, to be honest with you. It should never be the case. No matter how hot they were or whatever you want to say, there's no excuse. Like, should have been more physical, had more effort, been more focused. It just wasn't a good night defensively for us at all.
I mean, it shouldn't be. I mean, they're best offense in the league if you look at the numbers. So just didn't come out ready to go, and it made us pay.
And we didn't respond defensively. I thought that we were pathetic in that regard, but a lot of it had to do with Charlotte's sharp shooting and the great drives that they made, and they were totally unselfish. Overall, they competed harder than we did for more of the 48 minutes. They were the aggressive team. So that's a tough loss because I don't think our execution or our competitiveness was up to snuff. So that's disappointing.
All right, so obviously the defense has been an issue, but if you had to put a number on it, like percentage-wise, how much of it is they're getting too high after the wins and not coming into the games against these teams with appropriate respect, and how much of it is just X's and O's things that are happening on the floor?
I would say a bit of both, 50-50. It's a little bit of everything. You got not coming off wins properly, and you have X's and O's stuff, you know, not closing out. I mean, put a body on Gordon Hayward, do something, just run him off that 3 line. So a little bit of that too. I also mix in maybe, losing Devin Vassell for a while, threw him off a little bit. You know, there's a rhythm there for the team. This is a young team that needs chemistry. Remember, that was a big buzzword to use early in the season. Chemistry. You know, Devin Vassell was finding that little niche, finding to get it going, and then he was out. Okay. So now they're looking for some sort of guy to go to. Well, Lonnie's been stepping up a lot lately. So I think it's a little bit of everything, Tom. I think it's inexperience, learning how to play well off wins, respecting your opponent on that court. And they had no business losing to the Kings. I mean, I was sitting there third quarter thinking, is this really going to happen? Are they going to lose this game? And sure enough, they did. This is just, again, I think Vassell said it best too after the game against the Kings when he said, this is just another lesson learned. And I think they're going to have a lot of these. Brace yourself, Spurs fans that are listening right now or watching us right now. You're going to see this a lot more often as the season progresses. Tom could just pretty much put this on loop. The next time they win one, lose one, win two, lose two, win two, win three, like that. I mean, that's just what a rebuilding, inexperienced team is going to go through. This is it, Tom. So, yeah, about 50-50, sprinkling a little bit of injury here and there to Devin Vassell.
I'm not a big fan of Riverdale, but I know the meme. And we are experiencing the epic highs and lows of a rebuilding basketball team watching these Spurs this year. I think that what you mentioned with the chemistry, I think, is somewhat important. And the rotation thrown off in the Kings game a little bit with McDermott on, getting a tooth taken care of. But, like, at the same time, you look over at the other bench, Kings are without De'Aaron Fox and Rashawn Holmes and a bunch of guys that, like, really make an impact for them. Their coach. But, part of that is, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton stepped up in a big way, right? He had a first half double with assists. He was making really great reads. So there's something about that, you know, guys who don't really get as much of a chance getting that chance. Who was the big man they gave up like 23 points to last night? I'm forgetting his name disrespectfully.
You're playing the Spurs right now.
right. I'm playing the role of the Spurs, where I still don't know this guy's name. He scored 23
was it Jones?
On San Antonio. Damian Jones?
Yeah, I think it was Damian Jones. Yeah, he was just lining up.
We'll pull it up and
verify. Well, Chimezie Metu made sure that he let his former team know exactly what they missed out on. Guy was playing with a beast on the defensive end.
I'm glad you brought up Metu, because that was something that I wanted to talk about after this one, was the way that they guarded him and the way that they kind of got in trouble. It was Damian Jones, who had a career night. Yeah. Like the Spurs, I feel like fans are always like, they're always letting, you know, some random guy just go off. And sometimes those random guys are like, you know, solid career role players who just have a good night. But like, you know, I was watching the highlights on the Kings broadcast, and even they were shocked. They were like, he's shooting threes? What? And but really, what it comes down to, as I think a lot of the guys have said, is defensively, just a slew of issues. It's a different defensive team than we saw last season, right? Yeah. Especially at the start of last season. The scheme that they're running is different, and that has made for some good things and for some bad things with this team. One thing that I really want to focus on and talk about with you is the switching that the Spurs are doing more. You know, last year, LaMarcus Aldridge playing the center in that defense was more of a drop coverage, because that was basically all he was capable of doing. Just, you know, screen comes, okay, I'm going to take care of the paint, or try to, and then, you know, you just guard, do whatever up top needs to be done. Right. This year, we see the Spurs who realize that they have this ability, the personnel, to switch more. But when you're switching, inherently, it creates opportunities for miscommunications. You need to be talking a little bit more when it's not just, okay, I'll do this, you do that. If there's, and they're getting into borderline situations. That was something that Derek White said, and we have the sound here that we'll toss to. After the Hornets loss, and this was something that you could see on the tape, there were a lot of double screens. There were a lot of actions that the Hornets were using that left the Spurs a little bit confused. So we'll see what he had to say about that.
I mean, they shot it well today, obviously, but they do a lot of things out there that kind of put you in that gray area where we switching or we not. And then if you don't communicate well, they'll make you pay. So, and then Gordon Hayward had a great game.
Yeah, so anytime you have a screen, you have to communicate what's going on. And if you get caught in between, it's going to be resulting in open three-point shots or open drives. Do you think this is more noticeable this year in terms of the defensive communication things? And is that just like, you know, when you get a new group of guys together with a new scheme, you're going to have those things?
Yeah. I mean, you look at this team right now, and I'm glad you brought up defense, because that was something I was going to mention on the show, is that for a while there, I kept on thinking, well, there's going to be an identity with this team. It's going to be in the defensive end. And then what happens in the last recent games, they go away. They're having all sorts of issues from that. So I think, okay, well, maybe it's not a defensive team we're looking at this year. It's an offensive team. And they're getting a little bit more balanced. But see, that's the thing. When you see them shifting from wins on the defensive end, then you shift them, you know, getting balanced on the offensive end, that just shows you right there that they still don't have an identity yet. And I think part of reaching identity is the basics. And you mentioned it right now. Derek White just said it a little while ago, communicating. They're not communicating. And I think this is something that I think the communication will get better. If anything that's going to get better throughout is the communication, because they just have to. They're on the court together. They're going to war together. They're going to battle. They're going to get better. And that's great. But even if they start communicating, Tom, and even if they start doing that, I still think you're going to see these monumental defensive errors along the way because they don't have a veteran there. And I think that can communicate well with them on the defensive end. I think DeJounte tries. I don't know if you've seen this before, Tom, but he's barking more on the defensive end than the offensive end, at least from what I'm noticing, whether I'm at the game or watching it on TV. So that's good. But I think it takes more than just DeJounte. It takes them all to start chatting with each other defensively. This is something I think an area, if we're going to triage it, that can get better throughout the season. Communication will get better. And I think that will start the domino effect to perhaps picking up more W's and seeing L's, or this erratic, win one, lose one, win two, lose three, situation. Tom, I think you're absolutely right. Defensively, it's still a work in progress. And yeah, you just cross your fingers they get better as the season goes on.
I mean, since November, middle of November, this defensive-minded team has not been. They've been one of the, I think, 5 worst defenses in the league statistically.
And didn't they start the season like one of the best? Were there for a while? They were like one of the best teams. Yeah,
they were making an impact and making their bones on that end of the floor. One thing that I think happened a lot in that Kings game that exposed sort of another weakness for this team on that end of the floor, and it has to do with switching, but it's more than that. So you switch a pick and roll with Tristan Thompson and Tyrese Halliburton, right? So now you've got Jakob Poeltl on the perimeter on a guard, and then you've got a guard, trying his best to hold off Thompson down low from getting seal position. And something that I've noticed throughout the season with the Spurs is when they get into unfavorable switches on defense, they're not great about playing out of it. Yak has pretty nimble feet on the perimeter for a big man, but ideally you want to avoid those situations, or if they do happen, get out of it somewhat quickly. And on the other end of the floor, when the Spurs can secure a favorable mismatch, they're not attacking those as aggressive.
They play a lot of hot potato. You ever notice that?
Should be. Right.
Yeah, they play a lot of hot potato on the offensive end. Yeah, you do. You go. Yeah.
And when you have DeJounte on the perimeter against a big man, you want to give him space, let him cook. It's. I think part of that is an IQ thing. It's a understanding the game situation, and that part will come, I guess. But it's also kind of a fundamental thing, is attacking these mismatches and doing your best to limit them on the other end. One thing that I think other teams get out of this against the Spurs that the Spurs don't really get is, and we saw Halliburton do it last night, gets the switch onto Poeltl, and a sidestep or step back 3. If I ever see a Spur get a mismatch on a center and step to the side and chuck a 3 and eye hole it, like my brain will start misfiring. Like I won't know how to process that.
Right.
So there's that dynamic where and when other teams get hot, it's rough. And even when they miss, it's a good shot for them because Jakob Poeltl is 28 feet from the basket.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an area that Popovich mentioned after this Kings loss. Spurs gave up 27 points, second chance points. And that's in a game that was somehow both not as close as the final score indicated and also way closer. Like if you look at the stats in this game, it's difficult to separate the two teams.
Yeah.
There's really not much between them in the stat sheet. But what happened was the Kings just got extra chances and took advantage. Buddy Hield got hot, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you seeing in terms of the rebounding? I know a lot of people right now are talking about Keldon Johnson a little undersized at the 4. Everybody needs to be rebounding a little bit better. Is it a roster construction thing, or is it just everybody needs to get on the glass?
A lot of stuff you just hit on right now, it just circles back to something that Popovich would probably love to have more of, and that's just practice. I think just practice with these young guys to get them to understand, to communicate better, to be mindful of the switches that you just brought up right now, Yak at the top, and, Spurs guard on them big. Little things like that I think that he would love to have ironed out in practice. But, during the NBA season, it's rare that they get that. As far as the rebounding is concerned, yeah, I mean, you mentioned right now those second chance points, and usually Yak is pretty good about getting them second chance opportunities with his offensive rebounding. But even that, I think so you're better at this than I am, Tom. I think his offensive rebounding numbers are still strong, but he can't do it alone. They need to create those second chance opportunities for themselves, and you don't really see them do that. As far as just rebounding together, it's a collective, Tom. I mean, you look at what Popovich said in media day, and it still resonates to today when he said every game has to be won collectively because they don't have that megastar. So if DeJounte, I mean, how many times has he put up empty trip dubs? I mean, a lot of triple doubles, then for a loss. They have to be collective, whether that's on the offensive end, balance scoring, as we've seen recently, and defensively, rebounding, gang rebounding is something big they need to do. This is just what they are, Tom. You look. This is what this team is. This right now, they're just going to have these nights where they're just not going to have a high b-ball IQ. I'm saying they're stupid. I'm not saying they're dumb. They just need to learn the game. That's it. Lonnie Walker, we forget how young he is. What is he, 22, 23 years old, 22. Something like that? I 22 years old?
He just celebrated a birthday, so he's 23.
Yeah,
happy
23,
birthday,
okay.
Happy Jordan year to Lonnie.
Yeah.
And
Trey Jones, how young is he?
Yeah.
Devin Vassell is just in his sophomore season in the NBA. And he came in without the luxury of having a full training camp and a summer league to hone a little bit of skills. But good for him for playing well. We have to remember this is the youngest team in Popovich's career, and you're going to see nights like you saw against the Kings. Guess what, Spurs fans? That's going to duplicate again sometime down the line. You're going to see exactly this happen once again, and you're going to see that photo that I loved. I think you and I used on Kens5.com/Spurs for our articles, where Pop is like this on the sideline, just holding his head, just frustrated. I think you're going to see a lot. He's got a migraine. So that's just who they are, Tom. I believe we're 30-ish games in, something like that. About 30. What are they? Yeah. So
11 and 18.
I think at 30 games, you can already tell what this team is going to be like for the rest of the season.
Right. And, I think that obviously they have some very obvious areas for improvement, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, thinking about where this team was even a month ago, right? Before the win streak, which was, and I mean, we got to give them their props still. Like, that was the longest win streak this team has had in years. So they were starting to show that, we can, respond well after a win and, go get it and string some results together. I think it's easy to say that, they need to, focus more on appropriate fear after wins. But one, I think that if Pop had a clear idea of basketball-wise, like, what exactly was happening that was bad, he wouldn't say it. Because that's just not how he rolls.
Nope.
But, I mean, like, there are a lot of things with this defense right now. Like, I preparing for this, I watched every made basket by the Hornets and Kings.
Yeah, Tom going the extra mile there.
0 out of 10. Eyes are bleeding.
I was there. I saw it live and in person. It was ugly.
It was bad positioning. It was gambling a little bit too much. And that might be, an element of a team that thinks like, hey, we've got a bunch of defensive-minded guys. We've got guys who can go and make plays on that end of the floor. let's take some risks. And those risks in these last few games have not been paying off the way that they had earlier in the season for the Spurs.
Yeah, you mentioned rebounding there earlier. Just through the month of December, they're getting out rebounded 47 a game to 45. So those extra 2 rebounds right there, second chance opportunities for you. So, you just look at the numbers.
The rebounding is tough. And, basketball 101, if you want to finish a defensive possession, you need a rebound. That's the only way you finish it. So definitely that part has been tough. A lot of ball watching.
That hot potato. That hot potato gets me. Like, you can see they just give it to Keldon because you know what Keldon's going to do. 8 out of 10 times he's going to put his head down and bulldoze his way to the rim. And you see that a lot. You see them pass to Keldon, and then they kind of just stop and let him do his work.
No, and like, I don't know. Offensively is a different can of worms entirely, but at least there okay, the problem is we've got, reluctant shooters and, but everybody's trying to be better with that. And we've got, a team where do they really have a go-to guy? I don't know. But DeJounte's been that guy, and he's, doing better with it. So.
Well, it's not Jock Landale. I thought it was going to be him. Isn't he the second coming, according to Spurs fans?
We're going to talk about young Jock in a minute. He's been playing more in the NBA, which I think everybody here wants to see a little bit. The defense has to breathe, right? I've seen them stop making rotations. Or make the wrong rotations, or it's all team stuff though. It's all together stuff, and so I think that is obviously a concern, but it's also something that should improve over the course of the year as this group continues to play.
It will. They're going to get better in the fundamental stuff. Now, will that equal wins? That remains to be seen. But fundamentally, you will see them get better, and I think that's a good thing because I was a little surprised. Maybe I wasn't surprised, but a little bit more like, oh, he said it kind of moment is when DeJounte Murray recently said, "Hey, we got to remember this is a rebuilding season." I mean, he flat out said it. So if we're going to go with that, then this is what this is now. As Tom mentioned, the rebounding, they're going to get better at that rebuilding. Hot potato on the offensive end, they're going to get better. That's part of the rebuilding. So hang on tight, Spurs fans. It's going to be a little while since maybe the wins are more frequent than the losses.
I saw somebody say that, beating good teams and losing to bad ones was like a tricky recipe for a young team because that means that you're going to be, I guess, kind of fun but not very good. And oh no.
Yeah.
You're saying that the Spurs are going to play fun basketball games but lose a bunch and then get a good draft pick after a year that they were never going to win a title in anyway. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. Don't tell me that.
I would be very sad if that persisted. But the fun games in between where you beat a great team like the Utah Jazz, what did you see in that game that jumped out to you that was like...
All right, I'll say it. I'll say Utah lost that game. Spurs didn't win that game.
Okay.
I think Utah lost that game. How did Utah lost that
lose
game.
It?
They took their foot off the pedal. That was a team they should have beaten. That was a team that they built up a double-figure lead, and I think they just, it's the Spurs. I think that's what they thought, and I really believe that Utah lost the game than the Spurs. But hey, credit the Spurs. They got the W. They took advantage of it. They took advantage of a team without Damian Lillard in Portland. Yay. They took advantage of a Warriors team that had Curry misfiring.
I think that obviously there's some element to that with a team like the Jazz who had, I think, 15-point lead at halftime or close to it.
Yeah.
They had a 15-point lead in that game. They wound up blowing it. Definitely going to have Quinn Snyder talking about appropriate fear there. But even if the Jazz had 99% lost that game themselves, the Spurs still got to a last possession, down a point, couldn't really get it cleanly to their go-to guy in DeJounte Murray. So it's Lonnie Walker running pick and roll with the game on the line. And he goes right into the reigning Defensive Player of the Year's chest, hangs in the air for an impossibly long time, and puts it.
I think he's still hanging there in Salt Lake City. I think he's still hanging in the air. He's still there.
God, his hang time is ridiculous. One of the better shots I've seen him make in a game, and for all the marbles, he's had 5 games in a row scoring double figures, which Jordan Howland's team with the Spurs said is the longest streak of his career. The consistency has always been the biggest thing with him. Nothing I say in this podcast studio is going to impact what Lonnie Walker does on the court. As powerful.
I'm knocking on every single piece of wood I can find.
He's been playing on a really high level when he's been in there, and with Keldon Johnson's rough shooting start to the season, Derek White's. The solution for those guys, it wasn't send them to the bench or ship them out to wherever for whoever. It was let them keep doing their thing and see how it goes. And it's going better. Same thing seems to be true for Lonnie Walker, who has talked a lot about Manu being in his ear, about the need to be aggressive and downhill. But in those 5 games, I think he's averaging 17 a game and hitting 44% from 3, and that's the big one because he's a capable three-point shooter who throughout the year has just not hit those shots.
This was a little while ago, so obviously the numbers have changed since then, but I think it was about 2-3 days ago I tweeted out in the last 4 games who are the top scorers for the Spurs, and believe it or not, DeJounte Murray wasn't even top 3. Lonnie Walker was ahead of him. So Lonnie definitely is catching on fire on the offensive end. And, credit to him. He hit the game winner versus Utah. Like you mentioned, to go at the DPOY, Rudy Gobert. I mean, that's just phenomenal. I hope that he continues playing like that as the season progresses because you want to see individual development as well as team development. And if that's a sign of Lonnie's individual development, then yay. Spurs may have to sit with him at the table at the end of the season and say, okay, what are we doing here? Are you staying or what's up? So,
right.
Hey, he's playing in the
A lot of people watching his start of the season were like, well, there's no way they're going to sign him to a contract now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if the season ended now, sure. But the season isn't going to end now, even if it maybe should.
Ping pong balls.
At least a quick little pause. Maybe a quick little pause could help with the
just to sanitize everything up a little bit. That's all. Just to wipe things down.
The virus ravaging not just the
NBA,
my
God,
but,
I was getting nervous at the Kings game when I saw Popovich blowing his nose and you tell he was congested a little bit. I was like, what is going on here? Yeah, I got a little nervous.
A little uneasy here with everything in the NBA right now. But
wipe your hands, people.
Got to get those.
Wipe your hands. Get your boosters.
Right? Yep. Yes. No. Vaxxed, boosted, washing my hands, not seeing any of you people anywhere. I'm in my house.
I'm not even allowed in Kids 5. Look at this. I'm over here. Yeah, they're keeping me out.
We got him in the Harry Potter closet over there. But one more thing in that Jazz win with this team that was very much notable. 15 of 41 from 3. That is the most attempts and the third most makes for the Spurs all season. They were bombing them, and they shot a decent percentage.
Yeah.
But for a team that has been somewhat reluctant to let those fly this year, that was a positive sign. And you saw, Utah is great at shooting the 3. So I'm sure the Spurs came in with, even though it's a point of emphasis for them in before all of the games, I'm imagining before this one especially, they were like, look, if we're not even close from 3, we're not going to have a chance. So we've got to just launch them and see what happens. So the Spurs showed a lot of good things in that Jazz win, other than just taking advantage of when the Jazz took their foot off the gas a little bit. Keldon was 4 or 5 from deep in that one. He's like top 5 in the league in 3-point percentage somehow, which is insane. He started the year like 3 of 20, and he's just like killing it now. So
bombing
that's
them now, yeah. Yeah, he said that he's working with Chip a lot, right? I think he said he was, yeah. Yeah, he says, so good on Chip. He's earning his paycheck right now.
So good on you, Keldon. Keep letting it fly. Team needs it. And, I mean, the shot making down the stretch of that game in Utah was, from both sides, was really fun to watch. I mean, Derek got in on it too before Lonnie. But, like, just going back and forth toe-to-toe with Donovan Mitchell and Conley and those guys.
That was fun to watch, yeah.
The closing minutes of those games were pure competition. And
it was.
You know, when the Spurs are in the heat of battle like that, especially when it's against a good team, because when they're gutting out a win against a team they should beat, it's always bittersweet celebration. You're like, yay, but when they're just letting it all out there against a team like the Jazz, you can do nothing but tip your cap. So
yeah. I mean, it's not completely doom and gloom for the Spurs. I mean, you're highlighting something really good about how they played well against the Jazz. I mean, for this season's standards, they're 5-5 in the last 10, so they're playing 500 ball.
Well, they screwed up the whole thing because they won 6-9, and then they were playing the Hornets, who had everybody hurt.
Can I tell you something, Tom?
I was looking at that. I was like, I'm gonna have some nice 10-game splits to look at.
Yeah.
For a 7-3 team.
Can I tell you something, Tom? A couple things. One, I was at that Hornets game, and I know that Greg, when they were against, he sent us the list, like, we do our rotation with games you have. I was tempted to text you and say, like, can we trade after the end of the half? I was like, can you want to trade a game? Because I'm going to leave right now. This sucks. Yeah. And then second of all, I wasn't the only one that felt that way. There were other members of the media there. Shocking. Yeah, they were there. That they left. They left at the end of at second. They came up, whispered to me. They said, "I ain't here for this," and they left. That's how bad that game was.
It was not fun. And that one was over early. That one was
it was over early.
That was one where they came out of the gate poorly, and the Hornets came out of the gate on fire. And what I noticed in that game, and what I noticed in the Kings game, the Spurs made a bunch of their mistakes in the beginning of the game. And as the game continued, they wound up figuring out what they did wrong and at least partially addressing it. But by that time, the other team already, A, has a lead, and B, and maybe more importantly, has the confidence.
Right.
And then from there, it turns into a boat race.
Well, here's a telling stat, too, that tells you, that this still is a work in progress for your San Antonio Spurs. They are winless this season, a home and away, when they're not leading after the third period. They just cannot come out of a deficit, and they're winless. Yeah, that's just very telling. Yeah. They're like, obviously somebody out there in Twitter world will correct me, but I mean, I think they're like 0-13, 0-15, something like that, when they're trailing at the end of the third, home or away. They just can't get out of it.
Yeah. We're going to see them work on that, obviously, for the rest of the season. I'm sure that somebody that the Spurs fans who have been hoping for something different are excited to see play more is Jock Landale. Let's talk about the backup center situation a little bit, because there's intrigue with like 3 or 4 guys here. So just getting right into it with Jock, getting some minutes after dominating the G League. Obviously, he brings a different element to the offense.
Yes.
As a floor spacer, his post-up game, his versatility, scoring the basketball. The defense has been more of a mixed bag, and the mixture hasn't been particularly favorable. But
I watched him in the Austin G League 2 games, and I was like, "Yay, offense! Whoa, what's going on in defense?" That's what actually. What are you doing, Jock?
Right.
So, it's not pretty. Yeah.
I guess the question is the defense stuff at a point where if you just get him in the right spots and focus on ironing a couple of things out, he won't be as much of a liability? Or is it something that's a deeper problem that he'll really need to, improve?
I wouldn't call it a deeper problem. I think it's just an issue. I don't worry about him on the offensive end. He's going to bring it off. He's going to be aggressive. So yay, Jock, continue doing what you're doing.
And space the
defensively,
floor, which
and space the floor. Yeah.
The Drew and Yak, for all they do on the court, spacing the floor reliably.
They can't do
those things.
Yeah, they can't do what Jock can do. So I don't worry about him. I know you don't worry about him on the offensive end. I think he'll be okay. And defensively, I think he's just still getting adapted to the NBA style of defense. I think that's what that is. Even G Leaguers, no knock on them. They're putting in the grind right now to make their NBA dreams come true. But NBA G Leaguers, they took advantage of him on the defensive end of the 2 games. Just really attacking him, catching him on switches, really having him to think on the defensive end what to do. And I think that will come with time. But hey, the good news is he's not the only one in the defensive boat. The rest of the team has their struggles as well defensively, at least in these last few games. Tom, I think it will come. I think it will come in time. I think he'll be fine. There's one thing I wish I share this with our Kins5.com Spurs readers. There was a play in the G League, I think it was the second game, where either he was something at the rim, whether he dunked on somebody or I think he blocked a shot. My goodness, if he can bring that element of nastiness to the Spurs, after he blocked that guy's shot, I think they're playing against the Texas Legends, he just barked at him, started talking to him, got in the guy's face. The ref had to come and pull him off a little bit, like, okay, calm down, Jock, you're okay. And he was talking, what, to the other guy. And I love that nastiness out of him.
A little junk there. And, I mean, what a
my God.
access.
I was drooling at that.
To be talking smack in. I really like what I've seen from him offensively. And, I mean, if you can stick him in the corner and run pick and roll with 2 other guys and have the center all the way out of the paint,
let him eat. Yeah.
The defense is suspect, especially when he's sharing the court with a Bryn Forbes and other guys off that bench who are working on the chemistry part of it as well.
But defensively, who would you rather have though, Eubanks or Jock?
I mean, defensively, probably
just on the defensive end.
Purely defensively, probably.
Just
Drew.
purely.
Yeah, Drew. I think it's they bring opposite things.
Yeah, right.
It's yin and yang and
the big man position was again something that I took note of before the season began. I really thought, I was like, you know what, there might have some issues here on the big man depth charts because after Yak, it's like, yeesh, unproven rookie Jock Landale, undersized big man Drew Eubanks, limited offense. So I mean, I think this is still going to be an issue for the team as season
another
moves
guy
on.
who's been who had played some backup center minutes. But has not been playing and has been somewhat vocal about not being stoked about that.
Yeah.
You're saying?
And even then, I mean, even when Zach comes in, when he's just clear to play, I mean, how long before Popovich really trusts him to get out there to play heavy minutes? I mean, but the season might be over by then. At this point,
I wasn't talking about Zach. I was talking about Thad Young.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Zach.
Because he's Mr. Thad Young, who started to play a little bit more, and people were like, "Yeah, he's playing more."
He got a DNP the other night.
Yeah, DNP in the last 2 games, 4 of the last 7.
Popovich really trying to get him more angry to go on more shows to call out the team.
Well, yeah. So I mean, he is going on
the circuit there. He's going on tour.
He's talking to some folks, and he is telling the folks. One of those folks was Chris Haynes at Yahoo.
Come on the Big Fun Pod and talk to us about it.
We're in a rebuilding situation. With being in a rebuilding situation, that's not ideal for a guy that just came off a really good season, going into his 15th season, going to another rebuild. I don't mind playing through rebuilds and stuff like that, but the one thing about it is I'm not getting any younger. I'm getting older, and at some point, I want to start contending for championships. I haven't been in any situation where I've been able to contend for a championship. I want that feeling. I want that aspect of being able to go out there and being able to compete for a championship every single night. That's the part that I really want to get to. So,
there it is.
Probably not going to happen this year in San Antonio. With the DNPs and stuff, I mean, people are going to be yelling about, well, why isn't he playing more? And the answer to that, I think, is fairly obvious. It seems to me like it's a bubble wrap situation, you know? Like, the trade deadline will be coming up shortly. We've just passed the point where everybody who's on a roster pretty much can get traded. So the Spurs don't want him to get hurt before a trade because obviously that would destroy any trade value he has. As for the question of why he hasn't been traded yet, you know, like, you remember when you were the kid at lunch who, like, you know, your parents just got the really cool snacks that you have in there, but, like, you don't really like them, but everybody at school loves them. And then you've got it, and it's like, all right, what do you got? What do you got? Oh, you got Oreos? The Spurs don't have to make a decision on what to do with Thad Young until the trade deadline. And so I imagine that they're at least hoping for a bidding war. The reporting around the situation has been that Thad is pretty sought after by contenders. So there's mutual interest between teams fighting for a title, getting Thad Young, and Thad Young playing for a team going for a title. So I guess what's your read on this whole situation here? You know, the people that are saying, oh, it's a bad look for the Spurs.
Yeah.
Is that overblown?
No.
You think
I think it's a little... No. I think it's overblown. I think you're right. I think they are trying to preserve him as the trade deadline approaches. You know, he's been on, as you mentioned earlier, you know, he's been on tour pretty much, you know, going, you know, from the Yahoo to other outlets, putting the Spurs on blast, and kind of sort of, you know, I mean, when he says it's not ideal here in San Antonio, I mean, yeah. But
it's about as
credit
close
to him.
as Spurs ever get to blasting the team. But, like, it seems all very respectful and polite.
It is. You know? It is. And he made it very clear, I think, in one interview with another outlet, that he's not putting his current teammates, on blast as well. It's just only between him and the management and the coaching staff. But nevertheless, yeah, I think that's all it really is. I mean, can you imagine if he goes out and was playing in that Hornets game when it was blown out already, and the next thing you know, you hear, oh, he twisted an ankle, or you know, he separated his shoulder.
Yeah,
you know, knock on wood, doesn't happen.
He took a fall to the court in one of the games, and it was an audible gasp from me in the newsroom, just like until he got up, just
yeah. Well, here's the thing too. It's like you look at him and you got to know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the Spurs are making every phone call they can. You know, trying to accommodate him, trying their best to move him. You know, and I think they're
afraid of
he's
a
making
buyout happening. I just don't see it. If a buyout happens,
I do see it. I do see it.
Really?
I think I see it. I think a buyout. But because as the trade deadline gets closer, the value of him goes higher. If you're a competing playoff team, the Spurs are going to be like, whoa, we see that, you know, this guy can really push you over the hump there, Phoenix. Right. You know, earlier we wanted a second-round pick. I'm making this up, everybody. How about 2 second-round picks? You know, so I think as it gets closer to the deadline, his value goes higher. If the reports are true that he is being sought after by contending teams, then yeah, I mean, hopefully the Spurs don't pull a Daryl Morey and it'd be like, we won 100 first-round picks for him. And I don't think they're going to go down that road.
You're afraid that they'll fly a little too close to the sun with it?
Yeah, I think I'm just afraid that's going to happen.
It would be terrible for them if they had to buy him out. It would be a terrible look. That would be bad. Like the Lonnie situation though, right? Like he doesn't have to sign his extension right now. It's a good thing for him.
Yeah,
he's got time.
Sure.
to impact this business decision, right? And the Spurs have time to let this market play out and see what they can get. I do think you're right, though, that as the deadline approaches, desperate teams may get a little more desperate. But it's very important that the Spurs are able to get the best offer possible for him and take it. Because if they're left holding the bag, it'll be a little embarrassing for everybody.
That would. I can't remember the last time a player was being very vocal with the media like this. I mean, I can't remember.
I mean, it's not something that happens often because, I mean,
he must not be getting cleared from the Spurs PR. I mean, he must be doing it on his own, just to get on these shows.
Well, for sure. I doubt that the Spurs are setting up interviews for him to go and be
for him to put
satisfied with my playing time.
Exactly.
But, that also might be a pretty good indication that he's pretty sure he won't be on this team in the next few months. If it is annoying the Spurs that he's out there saying this stuff, that's not going to impact his career very much in the long term. So
I hope we get a Thaddeus Young tribute night though when he does leave. That'd be fun.
That would be hilarious.
Tribute video.
Put it in the rafters.
Put it in there. Gets introduced Phoenix.
I have enjoyed watching him play with.
Yeah, he's a good player.
So it's a little unfortunate that the contract and the situation is the way it is, where it doesn't really make sense for either party for him to be here right now. Because, I like watching Thad play. And wherever he winds up, as long as it's not like, 10 teams I don't like, I'm going to root for the guy. He's an absolute pro. And I don't know if you saw this in the game last night, but, he's on the bench. He's hasn't taken the warm-ups off and pops in a timeout. And Thad is having a one-on-one conversation with Pop. And,
I didn't see that, no.
They're talking about the game. It's just cool to see that because, there are other guys who I'm sure, given if they were in the same situation, would be like, all right, you guys have fun over there. I'll be over here. Text me if you need me, don't need me. Text my agent if you really need me.
Right,
And he's engaged and still, a member
of he's a pro.
Team.
Yeah,
a true
he's
pro.
A pro's pro. Yeah, he's a true pro. Yeah.
Yeah, I really I have nothing bad to say about Thad Young and the way that he's handling this situation. At the same time, I don't think it really reflects poorly on the Spurs because A, the situation hasn't played out yet. B, he it's not like the Damari Carroll thing where they signed this guy and then became clear that we can't play him because he just doesn't have it. They got him in his contract in a sign and trade that was centered around other deals, and this was a trade chip basically to make things work.
Exactly.
And that trade chip is now a trade chip that the Spurs hold. And so they're going to see what they can exchange it for before it turns into a pumpkin at midnight.
Right.
And, that I think is basically where the backup center situation is. The one thing that you mentioned that could shake things up in the new year is a healthy Zach Collins, who is, back doing some basketball things as he recovers from lower body injuries that have kept him out for a long time. But, he is a big man who can space the floor and bring a little bit of grit and intensity on defense.
Oh, I love that. Yep.
So if he's healthy, that might be a very interesting addition to the conversation about this.
Is Damari Carroll still in the league? I don't even know if he's still in the league.
Well,
right?
I don't know. He wasn't in the league last week. But a lot of teams are making a lot of phone calls to guys who are not in the league right now.
Yeah. Well, Austin Spur got called up to the Knicks. Dotson, so he's now wearing the
Wait,
New York
what?
colors. So, yeah, Austin Spurs, Damian Dotson got called up to the Knicks.
Okay, I was confused for a second because I thought you were talking about Kaycock, who I knew was signed to
Oh, no,
a two-way with
Dotson,
the
Dotson.
Spurs.
Yeah,
So,
no,
but
Dotson.
it,
Yes,
every G League player who's not on a two-way or not signed to an NBA
yeah.
team can sign with another NBA team, and man,
Mm-hmm.
do they need it because I think 70 plus NBA
Mm-hmm.
players in the past week have entered the health and safety protocols with
Yeesh. Yeah.
coronavirus. A powerful reminder that we are still in the middle of a pandemic, people.
Mm-hmm.
Please be extra careful during this holiday season. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the Spurs have thankfully been, you know, pretty unaffected by it so far. Obviously, remember last year when they had a bit of an outbreak
Yeah.
and that kind of derailed their season.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, the biggest thing is more than basketball, just health for everybody. So
Exactly.
it doesn't seem like the NBA is heading for a pause or shutdown or bubble or anything like that anytime soon. You know, they just approved measures to basically get more players in on hardship exemptions
Yep.
and exceptions and tackle a problem that way. So it's going to be an interesting end to the season here that we're not even halfway through, just in terms of the logistics of it all. We're seeing more and more games postponed, so it's definitely a concern and a factor
Yeah.
here.
I'm keeping my eye on the Spurs because the Kings, they just got smacked with a
Yeah.
little bit of the virus. So I'm hoping they were extra careful out of Sacramento. But I'm not going to be surprised if some way down the line we find out the Spurs are impacted as well.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where the league is moving forward in this situation, and the Players Association as well. So, you know, it's going to continue. People are going to continue to get sick. I think it would be foolish to say, like, you know, that the Spurs will remain getting through
Right.
this without a big
Hopefully.
problem.
Yeah.
You know,
Is Greg still near you right now? He might like this right now. And for all the latest on the coronavirus in San Antonio, what you need to do, make sure to go to kens5.com right now.
absolutely, we've got the latest
Yes.
numbers and recommendations from health experts up there. But really, guys, it's what we've all been doing since the beginning
Yeah.
of the pandemic. Wash your hands, cover your face with a mask.
Basics.
You know,
This is called the Big Fundamental Podcast.
Yes.
You can do the fundamentals right
basics.
now. Yeah.
It's basic stuff.
Basics.
And we've all got to do it. The Spurs are 5 games away from going on a big road trip. And those 5 games, they've got the Clippers tonight. They've got the Lakers soon after on the road at the Crypto.com Center. And then
I think of Superman's dog when I hear that. I think of Superman's dog, Crypto. I think Crypto's going to be there. Oh, cool. I want to go to LA and see Crypto.
It was I was having a conversation with a friend the other day because, like, you know, I was playing 2K, obviously, and the game was at the Staples Center. And, you know, a friend walks by and is like, oh, I think it's silly that they, like, name the arenas after stuff like Staples. And I was like, well, wait till you hear what they just named this one, because it's so much worse. Nobody had ever cared about being called the Staples Center before until they changed it to Crypto.com, and now everybody hates it.
I can't wait till the Spurs announce that it's now the La Fiesta Arena in San Antonio after this season.
I'm ready.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very interested to see what they wind up naming this, but, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. Let's start with the games at the Crypto.com Center. First against the Clippers, who are going to be probably shorthanded. And then the Lakers, who, honestly,
are a hot mess.
I would rather be a Spurs fan watching this Spurs season than a Lakers fan watching this Lakers season. 1,000%.
Oh my God.
And like, if the Spurs finish this season with a better record than the Lakers, it would not shock.
Woohoo!
Hot take.
Yeah.
No.
There you go.
Lakers stink big time. But
man, do they?
These two games at Staples. What are your at Crypto.com? What are you thinking?
Yeah. I think they rebound well from the loss to the Kings against the Clippers, and with no Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard. I think they're still going to be in for a fight. I think it's probably going to go down to the fourth quarter. Nevertheless, I think the Spurs should win this game. Now, if they do win this game, then would not be surprised they drop the next game against the Lakers because they cannot sustain wins, that winning momentum that way. So the Spurs are, I think they are aware of what's going on, what their issues are. Winning after a win. They're aware of it. I think they just need to do it.
After they beat Utah, Lonnie Walker was like, "We need to forget about this win. We've got a game in it."
But they sound so careful about it. We have to be careful.
Aware. I don't think anybody asked him hey, how do you? It was just like, we gotta forget about this. Good win, cool.
Okay, I think they go 2-0. 2-0. 2-0
at Crypto.com.
Yeah, I think they go. Yeah, I think they go 2-0.
I like it. I
think they go 2-0.
I am want to agree with you. Just because
that's what the Spurs do to you. Look what they do to you, Tom. They make you second guess.
It's the hope that gets you. No, you know what? Screw it. They're gonna win both of these games.
Woohoo! Look at Tom.
Clippers shorthanded. Lakers stink.
Yeah.
Go Spurs, go.
Yeah. No AD, right? I don't think AD is playing, right? Didn't he get hurt or something like that?
Yes.
He got hurt.
He had a knee issue. And when healthy this year, he hasn't been any Tim Duncan. That's for darn sure.
Can you believe they put that out there? I mean, that's out there. You go read articles about it that say that he's the next coming of TD. Good Lord,
man. And I don't know. That's for a whole other podcast entirely.
Might be the podcast tomorrow that you're going to be on, Locked On Spurs. So you're coming on tomorrow. So yeah,
hey,
so
listen,
there we go.
Man, anytime you want to wake me up early and be like, "Hey,"
I'm waking him up early, buddy. I'm doing this to Tom. I'm waking him out of his slumber to come on Los tomorrow.
I'm gonna have to probably be awake at an AM time that has one digit in it. I hate that. Hate that for me. But you know what? You got to do what you got to do. Nobody said this job was easy. Actually, people probably say that all the time. It's not so bad, if I'm being honest with you.
And the funny thing, everybody's like, so Tom says, yeah, I'm going to join Los tomorrow. Give me a time. So I give him an extra 15 minutes. Okay, meet around 10:15. We'll do it. So then I go, by the way, Tom, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. So that's how we left it.
Sometimes you just got to.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
With the stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll have a good win against the Clippers to talk about, and about this team getting back on track. But I mean, even this Pistons game, the Pistons are showing that anybody in this league can beat you nowadays, and really all the time. And that I guess circles back to the whole thing with this Spurs team, the wins they shouldn't get, the losses that you got no excuse for. Any given Sunday in the NBA.
I mean, are we there yet, Tom? Where somebody asked you, "Hey, Tom Petrini, the Spurs are going to win the next few games. Your thoughts?" Is it just simply a flip of the coin now? Are we there yet? Flip the coin.
Yeah,
and then there's your answer. Yeah, it feels like that now.
It's very coin flippy, and but at the same time predictable. Like I'm sure there were people who after the win against the Jazz were like, I know they're going to lose to the Kings now, almost sarcastically, almost like, ha ha ha, that would be so dumb but so fitting. And then of course it happens.
It happens, yeah.
So there's some nights when it feels random. There's some nights when it feels predestined. In any case, it's the epic highs and lows of this Spurs basketball team. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm still having fun on this ride. I mean,
me too.
We all knew what this season was coming into it.
Nobody should be shocked that they're playing this way. Nobody should.
Right. Before we go, I do have to give some props to DeMar DeRozan. 38 points in a win over the Lakers. Buzzer beater, winning basket. He's playing fantastic basketball. He's been really great. Love watching him play always. But at the same time, my thinking on this whole thing is that it was good for DeMar that he went on to the Bulls. It was good for the Spurs that he went on to the Bulls too, because this team needed to move in a different direction. It just did. So to see him out there shining is really wonderful. Even people chanting MVP, couldn't happen to a better guy. And nobody deserves flowers more in this league than DeMar DeRozan. Yeah. So hats off to him.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
his tribute video when he gets back to San Antonio is going to be amazing.
Oh, it should be great.
That video they're going to give him. Yeah, it's going to be good.
It should be great. But at the same time, we don't need to do the thing every time he has a good game where it's like, oh, you're telling me he couldn't have helped this Spurs team? He helped this Spurs team plenty. It was just time to go in a more youth-focused direction. And
every team goes through this.
It was time for him to go to a team that was built more to contend right now around him.
Right.
So
I think as the season, look at DeJounte Murray. A midi. He has a little midi game now. I wonder where he learned that from. Maybe he learned it from DeMar. That's kind of his. You've seen it before, Tom. That dribble crossover, pull up, boom. Mid-range.
I have on occasion seen DeJounte Murray do that.
Yeah.
It's butter. It's his go-to. And I don't know. I think that DeMar's leadership and the way he carried himself was important developmentally for a lot of Spurs.
Great with the media. Oh, I love talking to him.
Wonderful to talk
to.
And just a really a good human being.
Is a DeMar DeRozan Bulls jersey coming to Petrini's closet soon?
I'm not a big jersey guy anymore, just because one, I'm grown, and two, my arms are small. So, basketball jersey's not really a great look for a guy who is 26 and built like I don't know. What's a good insult for what I'm built like? I don't know. We'll
an insult? I was going to give you a compliment. I was going to say you're wiry like Mr. Fantastic.
I'm like a 5'10" Porzingis type.
Let's see. Let me think of that again.
We'll figure it out.
But KG was thin throughout his entire career, and he was a beast,
and I yell a lot. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm an extremely short Kevin Garnett.
By the way, you're speaking of hang time earlier. I don't know if you've seen this. Primo has some hang time too.
Oh yeah, I believe.
Oh
it.
Yeah. Oh yes, I saw it. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. No,
several times.
Some underrated athleticism from him for sure.
Oh,
Primo. Yeah. That's what we didn't talk about this time. We'll save it for LOS. Yeah.
Okay, we'll save it for Los. Yeah.
Sounds good.
There we go. Your topics are being generated right now, everybody. This is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow.
Real time. Spurs fans, thank you so much for hanging out with us. My name is Tom Petrini. You can find me on Twitter at RealTomPetrini. A lot of fakes out there. Jeff at Jeff G Spurs Zone. He's writing so much. He's hardest working man in Spurs business.
Yep. Plenty more coming.
And you'll never be bored going on Kens5.com and looking for the latest Spurs stuff, because we got you covered.
You got a chat with Keldon Johnson coming out tomorrow, so hang on tight for that.
I'm excited. Yeah. Can't wait to see that one. It's been a blast. Until next time, I'm Tom Petrini. That's Jeff Garcia. And this has been the Big Fun Pod from Kens 5. We'll see you. Go Spurs, go.
See ya.